Today we're having a look at my KA-BAR Kukri Machete. Quite a large knife, this one, to say the least. Biggest one in my collection. The Kukri shape, I suppose, over a standard machete, if I'm being completely honest, is simply the cool factor. It's just a very, very nice looking thing. Having said that, it's also, along with that form, comes an awful lot of function. We'll talk about some stats on the thing before we get too much in depth on the use of it. The knife itself, the blade on this one is 11.5 inches, so it's no small knife. It's not an EDC, don't be carrying it around in your pocket. Yeah, 11.5 inches of steel, which is 290mm in the metric. The thickness of the blade is 3/16 of an inch, or 4.5mm, so it's not as thick as possibly some of the other kukris around. It is indeed, as they say in the name, a Kukri Machete, as opposed to a strict kukri, but that's okay because that reduces what is already quite substantial weight to something a bit manageable. And speaking of weight, the knife weighs in at 36.3 ounces. Sorry, no it doesn't, it weighs in at 21 ounces. The knife in the sheath weighs in at 23.6 ounces. To put that in metric terms, knife on its own, 593 grams. The knife in the sheath, 745 grams. So it's a substantial piece of metal to be hunking around with you, but it does the job. The blade, as you say, blade shape, well, what can we say? It's a kukri shape. You know, they're very distinguished, easily distinguished. There's nothing quite like them anywhere else. Very front heavy, of course. The balance point on this knife is somewhere around there. So as you can see, it's a front heavy blade. Now that's good for these chopping tasks. Obviously not so good for delicate tasks, but if you're trying to belt your way through some undergrowth, or if you're doing some chopping, maybe dealing in a tree, we might try and do a little bit of that at the end of this video, roll that in. That front weight is going to make your life a lot easier. Big survival knives, same deal, but this takes it a step further by having a serious amount of metal here to give that weight up forward, so you're using more of the kinetic energy of the movement of the blade and less of your energy being expended to do your tasks. The handle itself is very, very comfortable indeed. It is brilliant. It is not a traditional kukri handle, and I'm quite happy about that. It's a material called Kraton G, and we'll bring it up closer so you can have a bit of a look at that handle. It's firm with just a little bit of give, and it's nicely textured, and of course it's got these ridges. And at the back, you can see there, so your hand wraps in and really you can't go anywhere. It's very, very nice like that. The other thing that's quite interesting about this knife, and it's a thing that KA-BAR use on a couple of their knife, is you'll see at the front here, I'll just grab out a pointer, an excuse to break out another knife, and you'll see it's flared at the front here, and the reason that's done is so your hand won't slide forward up onto the blade. So it doesn't actually have a separate guard as such, but that performs that function very nicely, and it's indeed even flared at the back here, you'll see, and that locks your hand in there very nicely. Now I've put a lanyard on mine. That's a personal preference. I would, however, strongly recommend anyone do this if you're going to be using this in a machete type of use, which is what it's for. Glove up, but certainly have a lanyard on. If this thing gets away from you, and especially if you're with someone else, it's going to do a heck of a lot of damage. So you really should, in my view, be putting a lanyard on a knife or a machete of this size, purely for your safety and for other safety who you may be out in the outdoors with. What else can we talk about this knife? The grinding on it is, the sharp edge is done at 20 degrees according to KA-BAR, and interestingly enough, when I had a look at this just before starting this review, I discovered, much to my surprise, that this section of the blade here is in fact hollow ground. Didn't expect that. So very slight, but it is in fact, you can feel that curvature there, so it is in fact a hollow ground blade. Interesting, I felt. Not what I would expect to find. So we'll move on to the sheath, and the sheath for this knife is, I guess, quite a challenge to design. Certainly not your normal everyday sheath. And you can see here the retention system on this one, there's actually two straps. Interestingly enough, you do not need to touch that bottom strap. It's superfluous. You can leave that done up. I never undo that one. The knife will come in and out quite merrily, just like that. It does, of course, have a huge opening down here. Obviously, with a knife this shape, you can't pull it out like that. It has to come out with that sort of sideways motion out of the sheath. By virtue of that, the sheath is not ambidextrous. There's no way that can be done. And of course, what I do with this, I generally don't wear it around, obviously, but if I'm out in the bush and I have got in use, I put the sheath on my belt, and basically I have to wear it with the sharp edge facing forward. It's not that big a deal. It's quite easy for me to draw this out. Just wrap my hand around sort of on the inside of the blade as it sits against me, bring it out, and I'm ready to go. And it's not really an issue. It actually rides quite comfortably because it's got this arrangement here, so there's a little bit of movement, and it'll take quite a substantial size belt. I don't believe you'd fit a military web belt through, but certainly any other belt. Down the bottom of the sheath, it has got a lanyard ring, and again, I'm not into not lanyards, leg straps. I'm not into that, but it would work well because that would hold on your belt and it would allow the sheath to pivot quite naturally on your leg, should that be something you wish to do. The sheath itself, front of it is made of Cordura, and the rear is leather. Very solid stitching, which you can probably see there, and the rivets and everything. It's quite a well put together sheath. So all in all, the sheath's good. I don't think you could do a whole lot better for a blade that is this shape and this size. I think that's probably pretty much as good as it's going to get, and I have no complaints with that. So quality of the blade overall, very good. The finish, we'll try and get a close up. It's a little bit grubby, but you can see there the black textured finish, and the blade's got a little bit of sign of surface rust starting to appear. They're quite difficult to keep rust free, these, but I do keep it oiled up, of course, when it's not in use. It's got a slight false edge up here that you can see. It's not sharpened. I'd see no reason you would sharpen that. I don't know how this would go for battening. I think that'd be an interesting experiment. I dare say it'd do okay, but the trouble is it might bind up on this rather substantial section of flat blade up here, and it's not really what it's designed to do, in fairness. So I don't tend to do battening terribly much, so I don't doubt if I'll be trying that with the blade. But for what it's designed for, and that is basically for use as a machete, and possibly you could use it as a survival implement, a lone survival tool.
Versuch dich nicht zu vermissen, ich will dich von meinen Gedanken streichen. Du bist die Schönheit, Finsternis und das Chaos. Ich versuch dich nicht zu vermissen, ich will dich von meinen Gedanken streichen. Du bist die Schönheit, Finsternis und das Chaos.
Versuch dich nicht zu vermissen, ich will dich von meinen Gedanken streichen. Du bist die Schönheit, Finsternis und das Chaos. Ich versuch dich nicht zu vermissen, ich will dich von meinen Gedanken streichen. Du bist die Schönheit, Finsternis und das Chaos.
Ich bin in dir und um dich herum. Du bist der Sauerstoff, den ich zum Leben brauche. In meinen Träumen gabst du mir die Vision, dass du von der Sünde ein Teil bist.